Hi friends, welcome to season 2, episode 2 of Dysfunction Exposed. Of course, as usual, I'm Emma J, and today's episode we're going to be talking a little bit more about my childhood. And every single week I record this podcast, every single week it gives me something more to reflect on. So last week, at the end of the podcast, I said I felt like I might be sugarcoating it slightly. And that isn't what we're about here, okay? I have broken my own rules, and I was like, no, you know what? I need to address this because it's been sitting a bit heavy on me. So here is me addressing it. So I said I should probably look at my approach with this season and further seasons for that matter, because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings regarding the life I have lived. But then I thought, you know what? The probability of my actual bloodline watching this or giving any type of shiny shit is very highly unlikely on the scale. I really can't imagine them ever watching this. If you do, hi, welcome. I'm only telling my truth, and I can only tell that from my perspective. Now, this isn't to throw anyone under the bus. This isn't to talk badly about anybody or do anything like that. It's not malicious in its intent whatsoever. But I still need to be honest. And I still need to be honest about how those situations and knowing those individuals made me feel. And it's okay to do that. So I'm going to give it to you straight from here on in. Obviously, season 1, very straight to the point, because it was all about me. And I can talk about me till the cows come home, because that's easy. I know what I've lived. But then for other people to factor into these stories, you know what? I don't owe them anything. I'm here for that reason. And this is such a thing with trauma survivors or children that have been neglected. We feel guilt for people who just do not even comprehend that we exist in a capacity that is different to them. What? I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you anything. So that's where I'm at. I'm glad I addressed that. But now moving on to today's episode. So when I was younger, I ended up having to change primary schools from the one I lived closest to when I was in nursery, etc. And all in all, I think when I counted it, by the time I was about 10, I'd moved 7 to 8 times already. That isn't a great start for a kid. There was no stability in this whatsoever. And my dad owned a semi-successful business at the time. I say semi because it definitely showed in his spending habits when we were good and then when we were bad. And it was an all or nothing situation. There was houses that were beautiful properties, and then there were houses that weren't such nice properties. And it wasn't until I was 13 that we actually moved into a house, and that was the house he's been in ever since. So yeah, moving around a lot. I think that might have shifted my juju internally, because you see your peers growing up in the family home and having all these memories in this one place, and it's all very nicey, but you can't relate because that wasn't your experience. And that experience isn't one that's generally felt by a lot of people. Excuse me. So when my nursery closed down, I had to move school, and I went to a new primary school starting in like year 1. So I was going into this new class and I had big anxiety about it. And the house we were living in at the time was far enough away that it was a drive to and from school, basically. So the first day I started at my primary school, I went in this massive silver bubble coat. And you know what pisses me off, right? Is that I was trendsetting in like 1996. And then fucking Keith Lemon comes along like 15, 20 years later, puts the same fucking coat on, and it's a smash, bro. Sorry, what? I had the piss taken out of me for that coat for so long. And I always thought, like, when I was a bigger kid as well, Mum, why did you even put me in that? She was responsible for giving me clothes because my dad had no sense of how to dress a young girl. So it all came back to my mum for the clothes. But yeah, the bubble coat, oh, it haunts me to this day. Absolutely haunts me. Where was I going with this? There was a story in there somewhere. So I started at the new school. And when I started there must have been an issue with me getting to school and my dad's professional life. So before school, I would be dropped off at a friend of his from the pub who had a son in my class. So that was their mutual bond. I'm assuming he gave these parents a bit of dough every time they'd look after me. For anyone who doesn't understand that slang, bit of dough, bit of money. Because there was no other reason for them to be looking after me. Like, I'm assuming there had to be some financial involvement somewhere. And then as I made friends in this class, he basically let me go to my friend's house every day after school, and their parents would look after me. And again, my psyche was a bit off on that one. Because I was like, why do I always have to go and sit in with other families? Why can't I just go home? Like, that would be nice, just to get home from school and just go home. But it wasn't a case for me. I had to go and be around different dynamics within different families. And specifically, it was my 2 closest friends when I was a kid. I spent a lot of time at their houses. Now, one of my closest friends had a younger sister, and then my other closest friend had 4 sisters. So I was around a lot of girls when I was growing up, and I think that my dad was trying to offset the masculinity of his presence. That is how I feel about it, because that's the only explanation I can put on it. He wanted me to be around more women to understand what being a woman looks like, or should be, or being around other girls just so I'm the same as them, so I'm normal. Oh, there goes that word again. Normal. And yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for using that approach, because it completely makes sense. And who was he to realise that by putting me in these different environments, that would leave me chasing that for a long time, and just trying to chase places that I felt like I fitted in, but I never fitted in because I was never part of their family. And I only learnt that, well, about 5 years ago now. But still, to get to 30 and not even realise that you can't authentically be something and be yourself in an environment where you're kind of not supposed to be there in the first place. They didn't ask to adopt you. You just happen to be there. And it was great, and like I was always involved with the girls, and like we'd go out on fun days out, and we'd go on like little trips away and stuff when my dad was flashing the cash. Because my brother was older, my brother never really got involved with my dad's shenanigans, but because I was a lot younger, I'm 8 years younger than my brother. Because I was younger, by default, he had to take me. Therefore, to stop me getting bored, by default, he had to bring one of my friends. Because that's the only way I'd be happy, is if I had someone with me and I wasn't bored. So, being in these houses, I don't remember much about the daily interactions of things going on. Like, I remember certain days, like days out and stuff, where I've gone and had fun with the girls, or like we'd gone on a little holiday to Conway or whatever, like a weekend away. Because that would be my dad saying thank you to whoever's parent had looked after me at the time, because you look after my kid, I'll take yours for the weekend. It keeps everyone happy. Everyone's a winner, baby. Everyone's a winner. But then, bear in mind, while I'm being shipped off to play happy families with several different families, in the meantime, my mum stayed in one residence for most of my childhood. And that house was about a 5-10 minute walk away from my primary school. And never, and I mean never, if it wasn't her day, did she come and get me. And kudos to my dad for keeping some kind of situation going, because he was doing more than my mum. He was still keeping me in routine. He was still making sure I had whatever normality looked like to him. And that was just getting up, doing the 9 to 5, going to school, all the usual suspect kind of things. But like I say, he was looking for women to try and mother me in a way that was absent in my life. And I understand that. And I wish he would have had the understanding to maybe take that on internally. Because some parents do have to play both roles. That isn't uncommon. But then you have to try and see things from a very well-rounded perspective. And my dad was, and still is, incapable of doing that. Again, you can only be as deep as your own perception and your own awareness. And that really, really sits. Like, there's a lot of the stories I'll tell you where my parents have made decisions on behalf of me as a child, with alcoholism, with mental health issues, with all these other things that are factored in. And even as a person who's been through that, I can't sit here as a woman and say, I would have made that decision in that situation as well. Because I wouldn't. I would safeguard little me, or any child who reminds me of little me at this point, till I am blue in the face, because I understand how crucial it is to have the support from your family. And to not have it in any capacity from being a very young person, that's always left me feeling like an outsider. Especially when you're developing, in my younger brain, well, it's obviously there's something wrong with me. Why don't my parents want or like me? Why am I always the problem? And it's those negative cycles and patterns that you form over years and years and years that stay with you. And if there's no one there to support you and hold your hand through it, how can you possibly even know that's what you're experiencing? That's why breaking generational trauma, emphasis on trauma, because it doesn't have to be this huge event. Something traumatic can be as little as understanding that someone made the wrong decision and it shaped your whole life in a different way, and it could have been different and it wasn't. When we say breaking generational cycles, they're the patterns of behaviour we're talking about. But anyway, on that note, I am going to go and enjoy my iced coffee. I'm Emma J. This has been Dysfunction Exposed. I will see you next week for episode 3 on Dysfunction Exposed. Woo! Yeah!